Alrighty. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another OMEC Sim Racing, Osborne Motors Endurance Challenge race weekend on a Tuesday night. We once get back with season number 11? Yeah, 11. There we go. Gosh, you think I'd be looking at this stuff for longer than 2 seconds. Season number 11. We're back at Watkins Glen, the famous or infamous Watkins Glen. Endurance weekend, meaning we got 90 minutes of racing, a potential caution somewhere in there as well. My guess is that it will probably not be thrown tonight based on the chatter I see in the admin chat rooms that I have access to. Qualifying well and truly underway. You see the times there at the bottom of the screen as we're looking at kind of what is on offer for everyone this evening. For those of you who are new to Watkins Glen and haven't been to a web page that includes any kind of racing on this North American side of the pond in a while, it is the boot configuration, which means we have a cool little section that kind of looks like a boot, which is the whole reason that it exists in the first place. GT3, GT4, Pro and AM classes. And limited fuel for this endurance, 50% for both of these cars, both of these classes, I should say, cars individually as well. I'm flying solo in the booth tonight. Kevin Hayes out on track, deciding he wanted to take a trip and get some driving in, and I do not blame him at all. So give him as much love as we can. He has had a heck of a couple weeks. So let's get into actual qualifying. We talked about where we're at, why we're there. That's a bit of time here. If I hit this button, we might go do the thing that I think we're doing. That is the case. GT3 Pro, GT3 Pro, GT3 AMs posting times up on the board there. Dan Griffin, hard shunt, I believe, for one Chris Kraus there as he gets that car turned into the wall. As many as they can, setting times. Malcolm Coates setting a faster time this time for himself. Put himself up into P3, 2/10 off the leader, Dan Griffin. In GT3 AM, Brody Wallace leading the charge there with a 1:45.980. Fantastic work for him. Runoff goes those individuals. Sean Roberts has the provisional pole in GT4 AM, only driver so far to set a lap time there. And he is improving that time pretty significantly, it looks like. Yeah, with a 1:55.847, he jumps ahead of Kyle Orovets, who has also squeaked a time in. I have only 4 drivers, which I believe are all GT4 AM drivers, with the exception of Devin Adams. And we'll see how that pans out. We're kind of rolling around with the exciting cam. I believe we have it as set right now as these drivers are getting through qualifying. Whole another 20 minutes, 23 minutes. Been away from the booth for too long. Justin Hall getting a faster time in. Bumps himself, I believe, up to P number 4 there. I'll check my time. No, sorry, excuse me, P number 3. With that time on the board. William Master also looking to improve his time. Malcolm Coates, Andre Saba, and Nicholas Maynard all floating around him. Nicholas Maynard up 3 spots, 3 purple sectors. That jumps him to the top of the timing tower. A full 2/10 ahead of Dan Griffin, opening that gap up between himself and Justin Hall as well by a pretty hefty margin. All these lap times are improving as these cars get their tires warmed up. GT3 tires now very similar, well, more similar to real life and similar to the GTP tires in recent months as they've gotten to the part where they have to be warmed up to really grip the road effectively. And in doing so, have managed to make those those lap times will keep getting faster for the first few minutes here as they get a couple more lap times in and posted on the board. Last time out, we had a doubleheader at Suzuka and Fuji. An update on how that went, since we did not call it, was a fantastic back-to-back races. Talked to the guys, the teams in chat prior to this, and learned that it was probably the two best races we could have missed, which makes me a little sad. But we were both under the weather, both myself and Kevin Hayes, and I'm now feeling better, thankfully. But I think what we missed as a result was, let me go find my season roster schedule. Let's show past sessions. I thought I had sync results. Nope. There we go. Saw a fantastic. There we go. I found him. It only took me a little while. Forgive me. Dan Griffin took home the win at Daytona. No, we saw Daytona. That's not what I'm talking about. Goodness. I can't be trusted with left my own devices. Did we also go to Suzuka? I know it's Suzuka. Didn't we also go to Fuji? I don't have Fuji results in here. That's weird. All right. Well, for Suzuka, I'll see if I can bug somebody in the chat for the other ones. Nick Terrell let home that win with Patrick Cantrell taking home a P2 podium there. Matthew Markley rounding out the... Oh, excuse me. What the heck? Okay, so this is just the practice sessions. Never mind. Well, and I'd love it to be easier to find single results. Hey, feature request for Landon Orr next time he hears the broadcast booth. This Chris Kraus makes friends with the barrier on the outside of the final corner. Feature request for Landon Orr, and I'll bug him about it here so that way it doesn't get too lost, is where is my individual race results? No, they're there. I'm just blind. Never mind. They already exist. He's what the fuck are you talking about? Week 5. We had doubleheader at Suzuka. Okay, well, that's interesting. It doesn't. There we go. It's just got it. One of these days. One of these days I'll figure out what the heck I'm doing here. I've been left to my own devices. I've gone lawless. Gone rogue. Meanwhile, both Nicholas Maynard and Dan Griffin topping the timing towers there. Dan Griffin getting a little bit faster. The 144.58 to Nicholas Maynard's 144.76, just setting his fastest time. He's going to dive back into pit lane there. The rest of the drivers all out on track trying to get some lap times in. Devin Adams, our last GT4 driver that has yet to set a lap time. Let's see if we ride on board. We haven't done a ride along yet tonight. And it is going to be a bit of an interesting one. I think he's on his out lap here. And you can see GT4s are a little bit slower here than the GT3 counterparts. The speed being pretty much and the engines being the bigger factor here. He is choosing to pull over to the side to allow cars through. Sets a 208.9. So we'll see if that improves at all. But he is technically on the board. as I think our only GT4 Pro driver, and therefore classified beneath our GT4 AM drivers, as he is a slower driver there. Dan Griffin, who's currently leading qualifying, is also the person who took home the win at Suzuka, but came home third at Fuji. Nicholas Maynard, our current P2 and GT3 Pro. Excuse me. Oh, hard hitting the wall there for Devin Adams. As qualifying reaches just past the midway point, Dan Griffin getting no faster on his lap time, as you can see that down there in the bottom. Nicholas Maynard, I believe, also on an outlap here. Trying to go set another flyer, or just started his flyer. Once again, the front-engined cars seem to be heading up the field. Kevin Hayes, booth compatriot for the evening, finding himself sitting in fourth with that McLaren. Only 7/100ths behind Justin Hall, who is a solid 8/10ths behind Dan Griffin and Nicholas Maynard. Brody Wallace has a pretty commanding lead of GT3 AM. And so, outlaps for our current podium sitters. Kevin Hayes not getting any faster with that lap time. See if he goes for another here. I believe he will. Well, we've ridden along with a McLaren this season. So, we just saw him go through the S's. A fantastic set of flying, pretty much flat out with the exception of like the outlap and the lap after that. You get hard on the brakes here, just past that 100 board. Not really that hard, I should say. Enough to get the turn-in done, and then you're back on the throttle throughout the bus stop, as that's called. And lovely double chicanes into a rather wide section. That left-hander going into the beginning of the boot. This is what is kind of referred to as the heel. Excuse me, not the heel. The chute, I think is what technically he's called. Excuse me. Toe of the boot here. It goes uphill. A lot of elevation change. This is Watkins Glen is in upstate New York, kind of in the heart of some of the Appalachian Mountains, if I'm remembering correctly, my geography of the location. Oh, and that is an unfortunate spin as Kevin tries to get a little more time there. Malcolm Coates, our current P2 GT3 AM driver. We got a lot of fast GT3 AM drivers this season. Oh, it's because he's a GT3 Pro driver. He just got upgraded. I'm just looking at a different person that I thought was a GT3 AM driver. Well, GT3 Pro driver, Malcolm Coates. Made sides in that lovely Mystery Inc. Mercedes AMG GT3. Oh, has nearly avoided a stopped Porsche. Believe that was Kyle Orbitz. Bunch of green sectors for Kelvin Collado, who is looking to improve on his most recent lap time. Or, excuse me, hasn't set a lap time, which is why those are all green. So looking to set a good baseline. A 146.84 puts him in 15th overall in GT3s. I believe that is also 11th in GT3 Pro, as you can see there on the screen. The Dan Griffin, Andre Saba, no improvement on their lap times. Jaden Rissard also not improving on his. Charles Rhodes up 2 green sectors here at the beginning of the lap. Comes across the line, improves that time, or excuse me, does not improve the time? No, I'm looking at Chris Wells. Chris Wells right above him does improve his time. Charles Rhodes does not improve his time, getting out of the way of the car in front of him, and that is going to be one Chris Wells, who just got around him. 2 of them in a bit of a draft pack at the moment. Four 400th separating Justin Hall and Kevin Hayes, a 145.56 versus a 145.63, 700ths, and then 400ths between Kevin Hayes and Malcolm Coates. Apparently, you take a week off from actually broadcasting, and you lose your entire ability to speak. So forgive me while I get reacquainted with all of this broadcasting software that I'm super used to, but it's not sticking for some reason. Dan Griffin, Nicholas Maynard, Brody Wallace, your top 3 in GT3 overalls, but P3 in GT3 Pro is going to be Justin Hall. Brody Wallace is currently P1 in GT3 AM, but P3 overall, I definitely get the feeling he'll be a driver that goes to Pro next year. A little under 10 minutes left to go. We're still hanging out with Charles Rhodes, who's trying to get a faster lap time in. Unable to do so this past time by the 149.74. Jaden Rissard getting out of the way of him. There in that McLaren. We don't see too many of those in GT4. I love it when I do. Got one of, I think, every manufacturer of GT4 out tonight, with the exception of BMW. Excuse me, you're missing one. In the GT4 class. In the overall GT4, I should say. 3 of them in AM, being the Aston Martin, the McLaren, as well as the Porsche. And then Devin Adams in that single GT4 Pro make car. Jesse Olsen, Nate Sides, Patrick Cantrell, Matt Markley, and William LeMaster round out that top 10 of GT4 or GT3 Pro. And then we'll see here in a moment as they keep going. Kevin Hayes right behind Patrick Cantrell, trying to get a faster lap time in. It might be getting held up here unless Patrick's also on a flyer. I believe both of them are. Matt Markley, Jesse Olsen, Dan Griffin, Andre Saba, all trying to improve their times. None seem to be able to do so. Yeah, Kevin Hayes out on an out lap. As we are rounding down the minutes here. Dan Griffin hopping over the bus stop chicane there. Currently heading up the pack. 2/10 ahead of Nicholas Maynard. Sliding. Oh, man. Good heads-up awareness from Dan Griffin there, but I think that might have invalidated his lap time. We'll have to see. Thing underway. William LeMaster, Andre Saba, all these drivers trying to get in better time. Kelvin Claudio up 2 sectors for the moment. We'll see if that translates to a better overall time. He comes out of the final corner there. Let's see now on that screen. Comes across the line. 3 green sectors. Bumps him up to 9th. Goes up 2 positions as a result, improving that time by, I believe, a few tenths. Puts him 200ths. A little less than 200ths, excuse me. Behind Patrick Cantrell. A very tight midfield here. Pretty much only hundredths and tenths separating really Justin Hall down to Jesse Olsen. Justin Hall down to Jesse Olsen. And Nate Sides through to William LeMaster almost. So, seeing what else drivers are coming up to. A lot of orange sectors as drivers just keep putting in lap times, trying to find those last little bits of pace they can muster out of their cars. Patrick Cantrell getting into the toe. Excuse me. Head into the chute. And Kevin Hayes hot on his heels. Boop, boop, bop. And see where they come out. Oh, it's just Kevin Hayes, unfortunately, finding that barrier once again. Patrick Cantrell, a green for sector, orange in the rest of the sectors. We'll see if that makes up for it, if those are close enough to his final time. Tony Caicedo right behind these 2 drivers, or a little ways behind, behind Markley. Patrick Cantrell up in the first, up in the last. That does improve his time. He doesn't gain any positions, however. Tony Caicedo setting his first lap time in of the evening. He is just squeaking in to beat the buzzer. 4 minutes remain in open qualifying. He has at least put a lap time in, or that was invalidated, so he will have to come back around and give it another shot. Nick Terrell as well, or latecomers. Looking to see if he can squeeze a lap time in before the end of the qualifying session. Still got 90 minutes of racing here, so plenty of time to make up whatever is not found here, at least initially. You got to be careful and keep it clean. In order to see the checker flag, in order to finish first, you first must finish, I think is the way that saying goes. Right, watching along with Tony Caicedo, seeing if he can get a lap time in before the end of qualifying. Chris Wells improving on his 4th sector out of the 5. We'll see if that translates to a faster time for him, if he's close enough to his other lap times to make up for it. I'm guessing the answer is going to be no, but it's possible. Ooh, does improve. I don't think he gets any points for it. Tony Caicedo, green in all of his sectors minus the first one. Looks like he kept it within the lines this time. Sean Roberts setting the fastest time in GT4. Tony Caicedo putting himself into P15 in GT3 Pro. Those tires are still warming up. He's going to get around, hopefully get around his teammate, Jaden Rissard, in the GT4 in that lovely McLaren. You see him flashing the lights. He slides in on the inside of the S's. Expertly done. Riding along with Tony for a little while here. most of the front pack runners trying to get lap times in. Sean Roberts has just reset the fastest lap, a whole second and a half ahead, or excuse me, 1.2 seconds ahead of Jaden Broussard. Michael Doyen, 400ths ahead of Khalil McIntyre. Not for position there, as they're both in different classes. The rest of the drivers mostly in pit lane. Justin Hall also out trying to set a faster time. Just came across the timing tower, 146.53, this most recent time by. A second slower than his fastest. We'll see if he can improve that and get back into the 145s. Let's see if we can close that gap to Brody Wallace. A 4/10 gap between himself, Brody Wallace, who is just the leader of GT3 AM. And another 4/10 between him and Nicholas Maynard. Nicholas Maynard and Dan Griffin, I think, are on another planet, it feels like, this afternoon. Nick Terrell trying to squeeze a lap in here. Trying to beat the buzzer. Less than a minute. 10 seconds till the end of qualifying. Well, I believe he'll have time to finish the lap he's on. We'll see a bunch of them come down to the start-finish line here momentarily into the toe of the boot. A solid, at least clean-looking exit there. Not running too wide. Pretty easy to do in some faster cars. Not the easiest thing to do. I feel like in GT3s, especially if you line up that corner correctly into the heel. A very fast 90 degree. Very wide 90 degree too. Coming back up on the final couple corners here. Oh, way wide there. I think he kept it in the lines, though, as the track limits on that corner specifically is pretty forgiving. We'll have to see if that's the case. Checkered flag flies for him as he comes across the timing tower there. Does not seem to... Oh, sorry. He does keep that time at 148.09, so definitely his outlap of he gets that done in. The rest of the track looking to finish their laps, and then we'll see our grid when it becomes official. The rest of the cars coming in to pit lane. Matt Markley, I think one of our few drivers out there still trying to set a lap time. See how they fly. Matt Markley getting that lap time in to set it. Results are going to be underway, and then we'll see the grid here in just a brief moment. Dan Griffin, It's going to lead us off alongside Nicholas Maynard. Brody Wallace and Justin Hall are going to be in row number 2. Kevin Hayes, my lovely co-commentator, and Malcolm Coates round out row number 3. Jesse Olson, Nate Sides, Patrick Cantrell, Kevin Collado, Matt Markley, and William Lemaster are your top 12. Let me hit this button here and we can see what the rest of the grid has in store. Luke Plaisance alongside Andre Saba for row number 7. Marcus Osborne, Chris Kraus in row number 8. Michael Doyen, Khalil McIntyre, Kevin Medina, and Tony Caicedo are your top 20. Chris Wells, Charles Rhodes, Adam Dahl, Nick Terrell. I've got a couple more. Are going to be all, sorry, those are going to be all 24 of your GT3 drivers. And you have 4 GT4 drivers: Sean Roberts, Jaden Rossard, Kyle Orvetz, and Devin Adams are going to be the 4 GT4 drivers. You see the grid lining up there, getting ready to get this show on the road. We've talked about it before. I'll say it once more. 50% fuel for these drivers. We'll likely see them make 2 stops tonight, as it is a 90-minute endurance race. Flash from Dan Griffin as he gets that car underway. A stacked grid if we kind of scroll through it here. Just a whole bunch of cars. Lovely turnout as always. Formation lap is underway. That BMW M2 safety car going to lead them off. That front row between Nicholas Maynard, Dan Griffin, your pole sitter, and P2 in inverse order of what I just said. So, see if I can take a look here. If I can go into the gearbox. Ooh. There we go. Let's take a look at all these drivers as they get through the S's here. We'll see a couple drivers starting from the pits. Michael Doyen, Nick Terrell, the 2 of them there, electing to do so for one reason or another. So, with this grid getting through the bus stop, we'll see them drive away here in just a little bit. Dan Griffin getting really close to that pace car. Pace car unwavered by the closeness, just keeping to his line, driving the way he should be. I mean, he's a pace car. What's he gonna do? So we'll see these 2 drivers lead away. The rest of the field in just a moment here. We'll see I think my hope is a very fantastic set of driving here. Only 2 of the 4 GT4s took to the start as well. Kyle Orvetz and Devin Adams both seem to not be in pit lane either. Feel the anticipation building as these, look at that train of cars from Dan Griffin all the way back to Jaden Rossard in that McLaren GT4. See how well they go as they get underway here. So we do this. Boop. Yeah. Static camera shot of all these cars. They come around the penultimate corner into that final corner. Safety car will bail in here in just a moment's time. And then we are waiting on that green flag to wave. Dan Griffin will lead everyone away. It's hanging in the air. Barney's got it. Waiting on Barney now at this point. Green flag is away, and they go racing. Hey, 3 wide as they are getting underway here. Look at all those cars piled in into turn number 1, 3 wide further back in the field. We're looking at 2 battle between there. Nate Sides, Patrick Cantrell. That's a spin from, I want to say it's William Lemaster and Luc Plaisance also wrapped up in that. Kelvin Collado also collected. The rest of the field getting away scot-free. Brody Wallace getting the jump on Justin Hall. These 3 cars nose to tail as they go into the bus stop for the first time. Following most of these cars through. Jesse Olsen winning out on the drag race down to turn number 1 as well. Getting ahead of Malcolm Coates. The rest of the field following through. Tony Caicedo up 5 positions. His usual start to a race as he comes up with his real-life friend. And the person he's battling is Charles Rhodes runs wide. Tony Caicedo says, thank you. I'll just swing through. Front of the grid as it was at the start. P1 down to P5 overall. P1 down to P4 in GT3 Pro itself. Great launch from Dan Griffin. Leads that to be the lap there. And about a second gap separating P3 and P4. Brody Wallace, or excuse me, P3 and P4 overall. P1 of GT3 AM and P3 of GT3 Pro. Separated by a second there as the end of the way is. And Justin Hall also trying to create a little bit more of a gap. Bunch of drivers putting in their times so far. Fastest going to be Dan Griffin with that 151.33. Further back in the field, we're looking at all these drivers make their way through. Nate Sides losing out a spot initially. Malcolm Coates losing a spot to Patrick Cantrell. Wonder if I can see where that happened easily. And it looks like Justin Hall. Oh, nope. He is just blinking. It's like, oh no, not Justin Hall. McIntyre running off the road there, coming back on. He's going to lose a spot, I think, to Charles Rhodes. Or they're going to be drag racing it. Looks like they're going to be drag racing it. Charles Rhodes not willing to give that position up. With someone on a tear, up 8 positions overall. And up 4 positions in class, or was going to be. Khalil McIntyre trying to keep that position. These 2 duking it out and holding up a bunch of cars behind him. That's Marcus Osborne right behind them, as well as Kevin Medina, Luc Plaisance, Chris Wells, some of those cars that got wrapped up in that lap 1 incident. And Khalil McIntyre seems to be winning out on it. Marcus Osborne also going to try to collect a position here as Charles Rhodes is just shunted out of the racing line and hung out to dry. Whole train of cars here as we get going on. But further up the road, it's no better, or no worse, I should say. A whole train of cars there. You can watch them all. It looks like Nate Sides might have made contact with that barrier, but I'm guessing it's probably netcode and our simulator showing that as how it is, not how it actually is. Dan Griffin kind of taking off. Nicholas Maynard taking off from Brody Wallace. Brody Wallace taking off from Justin Hall. And Justin Hall leading the rest of the field. Dan Griffin setting the fastest time, 1:45.09. We'll expect that to get even faster as the race goes on. Nate Sides on a run to try to get around Malcolm Coates. Malcolm Coates holding on to the inside there. Going to make for an interesting entry between these 2. See if Nate can get that position done. Try to keep up with the person he was running with earlier, Patrick Cantrell. Marcus Osborne getting around Charles Rhodes. Charles Rhodes seems to be falling down the order. Tony Caicedo now on the tail end of Andre Saba. Usually we see Andre Saba a little further up the field some evenings. Tonight he is being chased by a hungry Tony Caicedo, who did not have a great qualifying, looking to make up for it in the race proper. McIntyre drag racing one Marcus Osborne, who gets the job done on the inside, drives away with it. And you can see him there in that shot. Nate Sides, Malcolm Coates once again dueling it out. Malcolm Coates forcing the issue on the inside. Nate Sides just hugging the rear bumper, waiting for that opportunity to get around him. And we'll have to see if he can make it on the next lap by these two drivers. See where they end up in another lap's time. A chunky feeling hit. I don't know how big of a hit it actually was for Khalil McIntyre. It looks like he made contact there. And Luke Plaisance on his recovery drive, another one of the drivers caught up in that lap 1 incident. Sees him sitting in 5th in class. And he'll see if he can make up those last few positions and get back up to where he was when he started the race. Trying to get around both Marcus Osborne and Khalil McIntyre, who were behind him before that lap 1 incident. Nicholas Griffin closing the distance, however, 5/10 behind Dan Griffin at the front of the field. Both of them setting the fastest laps this most previous time, or had set the fastest lap this most previous time by, but Nicholas Maynard still a 10th faster than Dan Griffin is at the moment. Both of them 4 seconds ahead of Brody Wallace and Justin Hall. Justin Hall defending from Kevin Hayes. See the two of them go through the S's there now, coming out onto the back straight. A lovely spot for a bit of drafting, which I think has been one of the biggest helps in keeping that car just tucked behind Justin Hall there. They go into the bus stop. And a fantastic and clean, tidy run there for those guys. Jesse Olsen not too far behind. Malcolm Coates catching up to Patrick Cantrell now. Seem to find some of the rhythm, as Nate Sides is desperately trying to do so as well. Now these, I'm super curious where these drivers will end up, especially after pit cycles and fuel saving strategies, if there are a bunch that get employed. GT4 sees currently Jaden Rissard leading ahead of Sean Roberts. I wanted to see how this pass got done, so forgive me. A drag race into the bus stop is how that race position got done. He stuck it in, kept it going, kept moving, and saw it reach its natural conclusion. A fantastic run for those two. Those two now nose to tail. So I believe Sean Roberts looking to employ a bit of fuel saving potentially. But a fantastic set of driving from these two drivers in GT4 Pro. We'll probably check back in with them in a little bit. I didn't want to have them feel like they were left out. Tony Caicedo desperately chasing down Andre Saba here. Let's ride along board. I want to see how this run down through the S's. A fantastic, you're just flat out through all of this. At this point, a couple laps in, these tires are warmed up and ready to go, so you can just floor it and hang on. Two of them trying to work their way back up the order. Oh, Tony trying to not hit Andre, who seems to take a slower line through there. William Lasser, the first driver to enter pit lane. Let's see what happened here. This was an incident or something worse. Yeah, definitely gets off track there. Oh, just makes a huge contact with the barrier. You can see that car move all over the place. And I think he came in to take that fast repair early on. Still riding along board. Malcolm Coates finally getting passed by Nate Sides. I'm just hanging out with these guys because I want to see. Oh, good catch from Tony Caicedo, but he was going to lose all that time he had just gained trying to get past him. You see the fast handiwork there from Tony. Really helping him out. This whole time we've not had our race grid. There we go. Well, now you have it. My apologies. So, with that, 10 minutes in of our 90-minute endurance, these drivers duking it out still. Malcolm Coates getting passed by Nate Sides, his most recent time by. Looking to see if he can make up that difference. And meanwhile, at the head of the field, these two have started to go at it as Nicholas Maynard continues to close that gap. A 144.99 versus the 144.98 between Dan Griffin and Nicholas Maynard, respectively. So the strategy game is on for these two. As they get into the toe of the boot. And a fantastic set of racing going to be done from these two, probably for the entire night, unless something happens to one or both. Which, now that I've said that, of course, something will happen because I've just broadcasted cursed them, so. And with these two going at it, taking a look here at the lap times, at the plans, seeing what else is happening. A three-way battle between Justin Hall, Kevin Hayes, Jesse Olsen happening a little bit further back. You can see it there at the back of the screen. All of them about 6/10 away from each other. Justin Hall having the better run this time by, and each one a little bit slower. Matthew Markley setting his personal best, trying to hang out with Malcolm Coates, who has, I think, cooked it going into turn number one. And we'll see Kevin Hayes getting a great run out of the S's here to close that gap up a little bit. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Nicholas Maynard getting a fantastic run out of that winding right-hander into the chute to be right on the tail end of Dan Griffin. 2/10 separating these two drivers as they get into the toe. I think he's trying to look for that incident there. Let me see here. I wanted to see something. What did I want to see? I had a button I wanted to hit. Lap time, that's what I wanted to hit. Taking a look at the lap times between these two drivers. And for the past four of them, with the exception of this most recent one, Nicholas Maynard has been about a 10th faster or less. But that's all that's needed here in this, what is a game of, I think, mere hundredths and small moments, which I think will add up into big pieces. We'll see how lap 7 changes things. Another 10th there for Nicholas Maynard as they set those lap times. I'll show the gaps here. Or swap to the gaps, I should say. Or excuse me, that's the gap to the leader. So I wanted to actually back it the way it was. Never mind. See how close those battles are for position. Luc Plaisance slowly closing that distance as well. They both go through there. Tony Caicedo still on the tail end of Andre Saba. Meanwhile, further back in the field, Kevin Medita catching up to Khalil McIntyre with Chris Wells and Calvin Collado duking it out just behind them. And these 4 drivers, I think, will be seeing their own battle continue. Calvin Collado, one of the few drivers in the early lap 1 incident, but otherwise on a pretty fantastic recovery drive there. Tony Caicedo keeping it tight to Andre, but having a little bit of another moment. Chris Kraus almost going off track there. The 2 of them, Marcus Osborne being caught by Luke Plaisance as well. Kevin Medina, having an unfortunate incident there. Let's take a quick look back at this. We just looked away from them. Gets a self-spin, and then Chris Wells unfortunately gets caught up in that and loses his front bumper, or he gets reattached to it. He doesn't actually lose it. It just looks like he loses it. And he jumps to the pits there as they does so. Lap traffic of Sean Roberts and Jaden Rissard going to become a factor here as Dan Griffin and Nicholas Maynard work their way through. Let's ride along with Nicholas Maynard as he's trying to work through this traffic alongside Dan Griffin. And we're going to see how well they all take it. Dan Griffin getting boxed in a little bit by Jaden Rissard. Not intentionally, but that's going to keep that distance close. But he's going to punch a hole that Nicholas Maynard's going to follow through. And then he's going to have that look. Doesn't push the issue, but has a look up the inside. They both get through that traffic very well as a result. And Brody Wallace going to be the next one to do that here in a few seconds' time. You can see them there. Justin Hall and Kevin Hayes back at it again as they go through the toe of the boot. See that continue there for them. William LeMaster also labeled as crashed. We'll take up on that here in a moment. I kind of want to see how these 2 get through that traffic. As we come around to the final couple corners here, Brody Wallace, I think, is just about to come up on that lap traffic as it is. Justin Hall running real wide there, allowing Kevin Hayes to try to close that distance, but he seems to be losing a little bit of pace here. Meanwhile, at the front of the field for the overall lead, Nicholas Maynard has what looks to be a pretty good run through the S's in the drafts, just hugging tight there. Let's see if he throws the look. Less than a tenth separating these 2 cars. Does not give it to him. Keeps it in lockstep, as they say. Justin Hall and Kevin Hayes having to get through traffic into the bus stop. Justin Hall getting in between the 2 GT4s. Jaden Rissard having to take a wide exit there to not run into him. And Kevin Hayes going a long way around Sean Roberts as a result. Gives the flash, Jaden Rissard. Jaden Rissard leaves the door open for him. He gets through without too much of an issue. Taking a jump back to look at what happened with William LeMaster here into turn number 1. He has that car put together from that earlier incident and goes into turn number 1 and just parks it. All right, well, not actually a crash, but he calls it a day there, understandably. Patrick Cantrell going off track, getting back on track. Right in front of Malcolm Coates. Nate Sides getting around him with that off track just before that incident. And now these drivers are all trying to navigate through that GT4 traffic. The GT4 is playing a little bit of havoc. I see probably just Patrick Cantrell try to go up the inside, or really successfully go up the inside here alongside Jaden Rissard. Malcolm Coates getting stuck behind him throughout these last couple corners here. And he'll have to make that move down on the start-finish stretch, which will cause that gap to extend. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Nicholas Maynard once again, I think he's on a fuel-saving program at this point. We'll have to see if that comes, whether that is true. but there is definitely a bit. He is right behind him going into those areas. Going into the bus stop, not those areas. Going to the bus stop, he is, less than a tenth behind. Justin Hall having a slower lap this 2 laps ago, but this most recent lap time a little bit faster. Excuse me, Kevin Hayes is a little bit faster than Justin Hall. Battle for third in class, as they say. See those two continue to duke it out for the moment. Andre Sabra finally getting passed by Tony Caicedo, I believe, as a result of the GT4 traffic. Oh, excuse me, lap prior. Before all the GT4 traffic, just lunging it down into the heel of the boot. Gets that pass done and dusted easy enough. Oh, we're gonna. Well, I had been talking, but my mic decided it didn't want to unmute. So, meanwhile, front of the field, we're gonna see Dan Griffin, Nicholas Maynard get that car. Those cars continue to duke it out as they come through the final couple corners, the third as well as second, and then ultimate corner of the lap. 22 minutes elapse. We got about 8 more minutes till the fuel window opens for the two-stopper, as they say. We're going to see probably a good handful of cars come in anywhere from the 30 to 40 minute time window, and then once again between the 70 and 80 minute, the 60 to 70-ish minute time frame. Two of them commanding lead at the head of the field, 12 seconds ahead of Brody Wallace, as well as the rest of the GT3s. And once again, they go within a tenth of each other. Nicholas Maynard, very comfortable, just hanging out in the draft there. Done it every lap prior. I'm going to guess we'll probably see him do it every lap after until the end of the race. Michael Doyen trying to get around Charles Rotes. Charles Rotes boxing, I believe, based on the way that line took. Yep, he is diving into the pit lane, getting his box done early, I would believe. Justin Hall, Kevin Hayes, 4/10 away from each other. Chris Wells making the pass on the outside, or trying to make the pass on the outside, has to yield it, as that takes him offline and would take him into the barrier if he wasn't careful. Trying to get through and get around Quinn McIntyre. See how this goes coming through the bus stop. Battle for position. Adam Dahl 2 seconds behind these two drivers. Marcus Osborne, Luke Plaisance also still duking it out for position. Luke Plaisance trying to recover the positions he had at the beginning of this race, down 2 now only from where he started. He makes the look up the inside, forcing the issue as Marcus doesn't want to yield it to him. Unfortunately, kind of has to, as there is no room for him to go. And the car, as that pass gets done, Luc Plaisance is up the road trying to get back to where he started, at least, if not sooner. Marcus Osborne then diving into pit lane as a result, as he blinks a bunch. We'll find out why here in a moment, if there is a reason why. Nicholas Maynard and Dan Griffin still in this close battle for the lead. And popping back over to take a look with Chris Wells and Clint McIntyre. Now also with Adam Dahl arriving on scene, just about a second behind these two drivers. "25 minutes in the racing books." These two drivers trying to kind of pick back up where they left off in this race earlier. For them duking it out. Chris Wells almost had the job done a couple laps ago. We'll see if that continues in a couple laps time. Pit window seemingly open. Justin Hall diving in as one of our early adopters of the pit window. Tony Caicedo, Andre Saba also diving into that pit lane. We'll see them tumble down the order. Kevin Hayes still keeping about a second distance from Jesse Olson. And Nate Sides another second behind both of them. 3 seconds ahead of Patrick Cantrell, who has successfully put a bit more of a gap between himself and Malcolm Coates. Matthew Markley, Nick Terrell and Kelvin Collado round out your current top 10 for GT3 Pro, but we'll probably see Justin Hall and Tony Caicedo, Andre Saba maybe dive back into that further up the order when they get out of pit cycle. Clint McIntyre, Chris Wells, Adam Dahl, all three of those drivers diving into pit lane at the same time to get their first stop of the night done. Jesse Olson, Jesse Olson, Kevin Hayes still in a battle here. P1, P2, and P3 overall. Currently into pit lane. Kevin Hayes, Jesse Olson making that stop go at least a lap longer. Nate Sides diving in as well. This was, I was going to say, a battle that was going to be getting closer, but it looks like it's at least spread out for the moment. Rest of the field seems pretty far apart from each other. Jaden Broussard and Sean Roberts still about a second from each other, but those two currently duking it out for the 2 podium spots that they will both be given for finishing this race. The rest of the field, Brody Wallace, Nate Sides, Matt Markley, Chris Kraus, Luc Plaisance, Kelvin Collado, and Michael Doyen all diving in for their first full pit stops of the night. 4 drivers stay out for another lap. Kevin Hayes, Jesse Olson, Patrick Cantrell, and Malcolm Coates are going to be the 4 that make it an extra lap. We'll see if that keeps them in good faith here. Battle for the lead, picking up right where it left off. This will be the net lead once the pit cycles are complete. Still only a few tenths separating them. Chris Kraus jumping in between Andre Saba and Tony Caicedo for his first stop of the night. Tony Caicedo really leveraging that there. Michael Doyen coming out where he was before that. Marcus Osborne trying to get on the binders to get around Adam Dahl. Adam Dahl lucking out there, but he is run wide to give the position back. I think he'll probably do the same. We'll see. Might be my guess that he'll do the same for Charles Rhodes when he gets closer. All four drivers who did not pit last lap come in this lap for their first pit of the night. Kevin Hayes, Jesse Olson, Patrick Cantrell, and Malcolm Coates. The fifth driver, Nick Terrell, who was further down the order, comes in as well for his first pit stop. Nicholas Maynard continuing to hang out right behind Dan Griffin, excuse me. Jesse Olson coming out. Oh, and that's going to be a spin out of Kevin Hayes. Let's take a look and see what happened here. He just got on the binders too early. Comes out. Don't know if he took tires. Yeah, he just got the power just a little too early. And that has caused him to run into the wall here. Keeps that car out of the racing line. Justin Hall coming up just ahead of Matt Markley, Tony Caicedo, Nick Terrell. He had a 30-second pit stop versus a 20-second of most of the rest of the field. Kevin Medina also being labeled as crashed. We'll see what happened there. Or if it's just fresh tires doing fresh tire things. Nope. Just hits the binders as well. Comes to a stop. Okay. Brody Wallace also in the wall here. Going off track. Oh, clips the grass on the inside. And we'll see him spin out of third place overall. Jesse Olson now almost on an island, 20 seconds behind Nicholas Maynard for P3, both overall and in class. Nate Sides currently in P4, 3 seconds behind him. Patrick Kinsell behind Nate Sides for top 10. Currently fending off a Malcolm Coates that is looking for a position there. Pushes up the inside to take that position. So this battle between these two not done yet. A bunch of battles firing back up as the pit cycles have completed for everyone. Andre Saba getting passed by Chris Kraus. Tony Caicedo, Justin Hall, as well as Matt Markley, all battling out for positions in GT3 Pro. Kevin Hayes diving back into pit lane after nursing that car back around. Sean Roberts also diving in for his first pit stop of the night. Jane Rissard getting that pit stop done a lap ago. Following along with these three drivers, just a little further back, these three drivers, Nick Terrell, Chris Kraus, Andre Saba, all duking it out as well for positions overall. Dan Griffin building a little bit of a gap here, a little bit more than we've seen most of the evening between these two drivers for the lead of the race. Jesse Olson diving back into pit lane. I wonder if that's to serve a drive-through. He's on the off tracks, so I don't know. Let's see. these drivers all stuck into a battle with each other for position. Only Brody Wallace and Luke Plaisance duking it out for actual in-class position, but the overall position also still determines what their points are, so they are all battling for those as well. 3/10 between each of these drivers. Luke Plaisance tries to get around Jesse Olsen, who just served that drive-through penalty. Battle heating up here as they also are coming up to the tail end of Andre Saba and Chris Kraus, also in their own battle. And let's see where all of them come out at the end of this. Another tense. Oh, Dan Griffin getting passed by Nicholas Maynard, but looking to get that pass redone. Nicholas Maynard running wide there as a result. Two of them going side by side into not really the heel or the toe, but a battle here as Dan keeps his nose in. They go too wide. The final couple corners, just giving each other so much space. Dan keeping the nose in. He's going to have the inside line going through the first turn. Both of them getting past Cleo McIntyre, who is now a lap down. And that change for the lead finally reaches its natural conclusion. Kind of want to go step back and see where this started. Oh, no, there we go. Also, that was before that. Oh, had to dive into the toe here is where that all kicked off. You see it right out here from this position as Dan gets that car back going the right direction. Meanwhile, Patrick Cantrell getting around Malcolm Coates, Justin Hall catching up to the tail end of them as well. Jaden Rissard still 7 seconds behind. Sean Roberts after the pit cycle. Luke Plaisance also diving into pit lane. Believed to serve what looks to be maybe a drive-through penalty. Let's see here. Doesn't seem like he's stopping in his box. Oh, nope, he is stopping in his box. All right. See what comes of that in a moment. Malcolm Coates now hounded by Justin Hall, who's trying to get back after a very slow pit stop from him. Another 10 seconds versus everybody else. I think he took tires while everybody else did. Could be wrong on that. In fact, it's very likely I'm wrong on that. But Michael Doyen trying to catch up to Marcus Osborne, who was chasing down Chris Wells. These are all for position in various spots. Oh, shaky look from them. Dan Griffin losing time there at the front of the field. Meanwhile, back here, Marcus Osborne getting chased down by a Michael Doyen, looking to get that Veterans United car put together the right way as Marcus goes really wide. I think that's going to set Michael Doyen up to get a really good exit from the toe into the heel, which will probably be a net success for him. Well, as these two continue their battle, Justin Hall looking to get around Malcolm Coates, who is losing time to Patrick Cantrell at this point. Kevin Medina labeled as crashed once again. Malcolm Coates fending off Justin Hall. As we continue here, Tony Caicedo slowly making his way up to the tail end of this fight. Talk about a drive from the back of the pack, up 13 spots Tony Caicedo is at the moment. We'll see how many more he can get tonight before it is over. Michael Doyen still chasing down Marcus Osborne. Andre Saba trying to keep Brody Wallace, who is on that recovery drive after the self-spin. And Luke Plaisance labeled as crashed on an outlap here. I believe after just going to the, just probably good on new tires there, and that's going to see that car. Oh, and he's in a dangerous spot there. But he's going to pull it out, and he's going to tow it. So he is labeled as crashed. Andre Saba still fending off as they go through the final corner from Brody Wallace. And as they get past Sean Roberts. Malcolm Coates going too wide through the S's with Justin Hall. It's going to slow both of them down. Tony Caicedo is probably loving this as this brings their battle towards him by a pretty significant margin. Going too wide through there in most cars that don't have as much downforce. Most cars like this, GT tin tops, one might say, tend to slow you down a little bit more than if you just take the racing line. So, Justin Hall getting around Malcolm Coates. Malcolm Coates now within striking distance from Tony Caicedo. Andre Saba still trying to catch up to Brody Wallace. Likely will not happen at least anytime soon based on the lap times, but we can hope. Once again, the field spreading out as we get through 43 minutes of racing. We still have another 40 odd minutes to go. Marcus Osborne, Chris Wells, Michael Doyen all battling for position as well. Jaden Rissard trying not to get in the way of these drivers and is unfortunately probably going to get hung out to dry, especially as Michael Doyen tries not to run into him in the process. Battle there continuing on as well. Tony Caicedo trying to find the run here to get past Malcolm Coates, continue his upward climb. Currently sitting P7 in GT3 Pro. And we'll have to see how he does. Well, we've already ridden along once, but let's take another drive along, see how he's doing. Oh, really working that wheel. Those tires looking like they get to the end of their lifespan. We'll have to see how well those shake down. Watch them come into the final couple corners here. Tony Caicedo right on the tail end of Malcolm Coates. Closest battle on track right now are these two drivers, as well as that battle between Chris Wells, Marcus Osborne, and Michael Doyen. But with that gap standing around 0.2 of a second pretty much over the course of this is the closest thing as well. Quick update on the leaders while we're following along with these two drivers. Oh, Malcolm Coates coming right across. Tony Caicedo has the run up here, but he has to play smart about it because he's got to make this stick. He's going to have a struggle doing that. You're going to see him ride in the draft. Pulls out at the last minute. Forces the issue. That lunge up the inside. Keeps that car going the right direction. Malcolm Coates getting the pass done. Textbook. As Tony Caicedo continues his upward trajectory. I think Perhaps see if Malcolm Coates has a response to that, which I believe he does, but we'll find out. Jumping further forward in the field, Dan Griffin, Nicholas Maynard, the two of them. Let's hang out with the gearbox. Yeah. Nicholas Maynard, you'll see back in the distance there is Dan Griffin. About 0.8, almost a second now separate these two drivers. This battle at least cooling down for the moment. Brody Wallace now on the adventure to get to Chris Kraus. You can see that Wonder Bread liveried Mustang facing off against the Cowprint Mustang as they do so. And we're going to probably see these two come to a head here in a couple of moments. The rest of the race, as it stands, Nicholas Maynard leading off to Dan Griffin in P2, Nate Sides in P3, Patrick Cantrell, Justin Hall rounding out that top 5, Tony Caicedo, Malcolm Coates, Matt Markley, Nick Terrell, and Andre Saba are your top 10 in GT3 Pro. GT3M is going to see Chris Kraus alongside Brody Wallace in this battle that we're seeing right now for the lead of GT3M. Chris Wells, Marcus Osborne, Adam Dahl, Charles Rhodes, and Khalil McIntyre are your 7 GT3M drivers still on the lead lap. Kevin Medina also floating around there. Sean Roberts as well as Jaden Rissard still duking it out for the long game strategy between the two of them as they do so. Adam Dahl getting passed by Kevin Hayes going into the bus stop as that goes on. Just looking for a quick moment between those two. I'll take a look back. This battle for the lead in GT3M as it continues. Oh, Brody Wallace lunging up the inside and looking to get that pass done for the lead. Chris Kraus not willing to take that lying down. Gets the better run out of that corner there into the penultimate corner. Brody Wallace is going to wait for that lovely draft down the start-finish stretch here to make hay while the sun is shining. I can't tell if that was real or if that was just the iRacing, doing the thing. Lunge from Brody Wallace into turn number 1. He's going to see that pass, I believe, done and dusted. We might see the over-under here from Chris Kraus as they go up into the S's. But he's sticking with him. Has the run here, has to lift up just a little bit to make sure he doesn't run into the rear end of Brody Wallace. Chris Kraus hanging out with him. Brody Wallace taking that defensive line. Chris Kraus not wanting to throw it up the inside. Pass there completed for the moment. See how much further Brody Wallace gets back up the order. See here, 50 minutes of racing done and dusted and past the halfway point as we get into the back half of this race. Taking a look through the battles on track, Nick Terrell, Matthew Markley are duking it out. Tony Caicedo going in real wide. Oh, and that looks like that car is struggling. Battle I was talking about with Nick Terrell and Matt Markley now involving Tony Caicedo. Tony Caicedo tries to re-wrangle that car back up after his unfortunate off-track. Matt Markley going down the inside there, but Tony Caicedo keeping that line nice and tidy as he does so, keeping that car going the right direction. Patrick Cantrell slowly getting time to Justin Hall, Marcus Osborne diving in for his second pit stop of the night. Which feels a little early, but maybe I'm not on the up and up of when these lap times are versus when I usually expect them to be. Tony Caicedo having to re-wrangle this car back up. Patrick Cantrell keeping the distance to Justin Hall. Dan Griffin a second behind the leader, just getting past the GT4 driver, GT4 leader I should say. Charles Rotes also diving into pit lane. As we get into the back half of this race, 40 minutes still on the clock, a little under it I should say. And Jaden Rissard also diving in for his second pit stop of the night. Malcolm Coates getting caught up to by Nick Terrell now, as Nick Terrell looks to make this pass done. Another ride. I love riding along board. We're going to see how this gets done. Nick Terrell, a fantastic member. Great run here versus Malcolm Coates. It's going to be interesting to see where he catches him. You're going to hear probably a little bit of a lift here to keep this car from going too far out of the way. Maybe not. He might just keep it pinned. He does keep it pinned. Malcolm Coates off to the left there now at this point. And you see him, Malcolm Coates lifting to allow Nick Terrell to get through without too much an issue. Tony Caicedo now in the thick of it, as well as Matt Markley still trying to get that pass done. Jesse Olsen fighting off against Michael Doyen. Michael Doyen having the run here into the S's. And Jesse Olsen fighting him on it. So two of them will go a little bit slower through all that as they go too wide. And these drivers eventually sorted out. Michael Doyen getting around Jesse Olsen. Jesse Olsen driving. I wonder if there's damage to that car at this point. Charles Rotes getting out of the way of Malcolm Coates as well as Tony Caicedo. Matt Markley also wishing for the same invitation, which Charles Rotes kindly does. Brody Wallace in the background now after dispatching of Chris Kraus. Tony Caicedo looking for the line here. Oh, yep, okay. He's still there. Good. Gets the over-under, I believe, going to be accomplished here, potentially. Too wide through the start-finish stretch. So he was last on the brakes at this point. Answer is Tony Caicedo, and he gets that pass done. Matt Markley, excuse me, looking to join them and keep moving on up the order. Fastest lap for Nick Terrell. Fastest personal best lap for Nick Terrell, not fastest overall lap. As Malcolm Coates hangs out with Tony Caicedo, but does not make a pass again. Andre Saba diving into pits for his second stop. Might just be time for second stops. I think I might just be behind on when I expect the second stops to be. So we might have a 3-stopper based on this math and when these drivers are coming in. We'll have to see. Rest of the field pretty spread out. These three drivers still within a second of each other. And Brody Wallace looking to try to catch up to them at any moment. Justin Hall diving in first of the front runners to get the second pit stop done. Looks like that is a pit stop. There, Jaden Rissard coming into pits. It's been there for 4 minutes in the box, so I'm kind of concerned there. Justin Hall trundling down to his pit stop. Nick Terrell leading Tony Caicedo by 3 seconds, and then these 4 now, if you include Brody Wallace, are all duking it out for overall position, as well as those 3 are duking it out for in-class position. As Matt Markley tries to get around Malcolm Coates. Malcolm Coates tries to catch back up to Tony Caicedo. Chris Wells, Adam Dahl also diving into pit lane for their second pit stops of the evening. Nicholas Maynard diving in from the lead of the race to get his first pit stop done. Dan taking over the lead of this race for the moment. Still about a second separated them prior to the pit stop. Matt Markley late on the brakes, getting into the toe, so he's going to get passed by Brody Wallace, who will keep that gap between Matt Markley and Malcolm Coates at a distance. Kevin Hayes closing down on Jesse Olson. Jesse Olson, I think, trying to get the 2-stop completed. It's going to be my thought process there. He's still got about 30 minutes left of this race, as Nicholas Maynard will probably cycle back out in between Patrick Cantrell and Nick Terrell. There's not a gap, but a gap nonetheless. Tony Caicedo, Brody Wallace, Chris Kraus all diving into the pit lane as well. Malcolm Coates as well as Matt Markley looking to continue their battle. Patrick Cantrell will try to see if he can hold off Nicholas Maynard, but it'll be a fantastic fight nonetheless. Justin Hall, Jesse Olson, Kevin Hayes. As Kevin Hayes gets that pass done on Jesse Olson. Working his way back up the order after the unfortunate post-pit exit incident. Dan Griffin diving in for his second pit stop tonight. And these guys are probably going to have to come in for, I believe, one more pit stop. Unless I've got it wildly off base. They might have to come in for one more. Interesting. Nate Sides also diving into pit lane. Patrick Cantrell, Nick Terrell still out. Patrick Cantrell taking over the lead of this race, a whole second and a half ahead of Nicholas Maynard at the moment. As Sean Roberts is unfortunately going to be put into a tough position as Patrick Cantrell gets around him. Nick Terrell trying to catch up to Dan Griffin. Nate Sides, Matt Markley, Kelvin Collado also diving in pit lane. This time by Malcolm Coates staying out as well. And Michael Doyen diving in pit lane. Justin Hall getting around Jesse Olson, who dives in as well. Brody Wallace, Tony Caicedo still chasing each other down, and these two have come in for their second pit stop already, so they're still battling it out for position as the hour mark ticks past, and Matt Markley jumps ahead of Tony Caicedo in the pit cycle. Matthew Markley only 0.3 faster, but he's going to lose out because of the speed difference between himself as well as the rest of the drivers that have already been flying down the start-finish stretch. Brody Wallace going to join him, but they're going to get real close as they go into that braking zone, neither wanting to lift. Brody Wallace coming out ahead eventually, as Matt Markley eventually yielded. Laps complete Patrick Cantrell coming in from the lead of the race alongside Nick Terrell, who are coming both for their second pit stops with just under 30 minutes left to go, meaning this will be their final pit stops. Curious for all the drivers that came in before. Drivers who came in before that hour mark, if they have enough time left before they, or if they have enough, fuel in it to take them to the end, or if they will have to come in for a splash and dash before the end of the race. Tony Caicedo, Brody Wallace still duking it out for overall P9 as the two of them get underway. Kevin Hayes diving into the pit lane for his second official pit stop of the night. Just making sure I didn't miss anything. Khalil McIntyre listed as crash. We'll take a look at this real quick as we get out of here. Oh, just gets on the gas too early coming out of the boot section of the lap. Almost runs into Andre Saba, who takes avoiding action and keeps that car from getting into an issue. Oh, that poor wing has been knocked off. But he gets that car back on track. Dan Griffin 5 seconds behind Nicholas Maynard at this point after the pit cycle. 2 seconds slower in the pit lane travel time, half a second, almost a second in actual pit lane stop time is part of reason for why that 5 seconds gap between these two cars is as high as it is. Patrick Cantrell, Nicholas Terrell now battling it out for P5 in class and overall. And we'll see how these two fantastic gentleman drivers get through this battle between the two of them. We'll have to see Nick Terrell on a fantastic drive from pit lane start. He's going to lunge it up the inside. Patrick's going to give him all the space in the world, and that pass will get done. But never mind. He's coming back. He's coming back for the over-under. He's not giving it to him for free. So he's going to force that. Not really force it, but he's going to make him work for it, which he does. Kevin Medina listed as crash once more. Tony Caicedo, Brody Wallace still battling it out as well. Malcolm Coates arriving on scene in the background, trying to catch up to them. Michael Doyen, Chris Wells in a battle as well. Marcus Osborne just up the road between both of them. Chris Wells and and Marcus Osborne are in a battle for in-class position, the bottom step of that GT3 AM podium. But Nick Terrell and Patrick Cantrell going into the bus stop. These two looking to duke it out to the closing stages with 25 minutes left to go in the race. And Brody Wallace still behind Tony Caicedo. Chris Wells and Michael Doyen have swapped spots while we've been watching these two duke it out. And we'll see this battle, I think, cool down for the moment. However, Brody Wallace, Tony Caicedo still duking it out from where they are further behind the two of them. Only by 2 seconds separates Patrick Cantrell, Tony Caicedo. Brody Wallace has a great run here out of the boot section into the final couple corners here to put him in front of Tony Caicedo. The two of them going to go too wide in that penultimate corner. And we'll see Tony Caicedo continue to hold that position as Brody Wallace lifts and allows that to not go too far. I wonder if Brody Wallace is fuel saving though. That'd be maybe my guess as to why he allowed that, or just didn't want to get into it with Tony Caicedo, which I can't blame him for. Malcolm Coates also still sitting in the background waiting for this to pan out. Chris Kraus, I believe, duking it out or trying to duke it out with Matt Markley. Matt Markley losing a little bit of time there after the pit cycle to both Malcolm as well as Tony. Kraft's gonna see how much time he can make up in P2. About 4 seconds behind the leader, Brody Wallace of GT3AM. And that gap for the lead between Nicholas Maynard and Dan Griffin just keeps growing. What was, I think, a very fantastic battle has come to a close there for the night, especially as Nicholas Maynard sets the fastest lap of the race with that 1:44.40. I was given a special task tonight to say a certain something for one of our team members, not our team members, but one of our drivers, as Sean Roberts comes in for his final pit stop of the evening. Our only GT4 driver still out on track, who is, I think, putting in the work there and going to take home a very fantastic victory for his class. That is going to be the thing I was saying before I got sidetracked. Had to do with an individual named Tess and the code word of lizard. And I'm not expounding further. I believe you understand exactly what this is about. I'm sorry that I got caught into this. I was given a hefty reward for such endeavors. Sorry, not sorry. You can yell at me in chat if you'd like. I can explain myself further, but I probably won't. You're welcome, I think. Cole McIntyre, I believe, also diving in for his final pit stop of the night. Battle between Tony Caicedo as well as Brody Wallace and Malcolm Coates still continues. As these drivers will probably take this down to the wire. Chris Wells finding the time that he had lost earlier to Michael Doyen as these two continue it out. We'll hang out with them for a little while longer. One of the two battles on track at the moment. These two, as well as the battle between Tony Caicedo, Brody Wallace, and Malcolm Coates. Two of them still trying to find time to Patrick Cantrell. I don't think they're quite finding it the way they want. And unfortunately, that I think will take them further backwards. But we'll see. See how the evening, it is still yet young, one might say. We have 20 minutes left on the clock. Nicholas Maynard threatening in the background of this shot to lap these cars. So we're going to hang out. I think I want to see what the gearbox one of these two for Tony Caicedo looks like as he's being hounded by Brody Wallace and Malcolm Coates. Both drivers looking to try to get around him for those overall positions. And we'll have to see how well they do coming up here in a little while. Chris Kraus was trying to catch up to them, still is, being chased down by Matt Markley. Top 10, as you have it, is going to be Nicholas Maynard, 8 seconds ahead of Dan Griffin, who is a solid 38 seconds ahead of Nate Sides, who rounds out our GT3 Pro podium. Justin Hall, Nick Terrell, Patrick Cantrell, Tony Caicedo, Brody Wallace, Malcolm Coates, and Chris Kraus round out your top 10 GT3 drivers in overall. Brody Wallace and Chris Kraus in P8 and P10 overall. Going to be P1 and P2 of that GT3M podium. So all these drivers continue to make their way around. Jesse Olsen arriving on scene in the battle between Michael Doyen and Chris Wells, as he's made a some time there. Now that he's hit his fuel markers, I have to imagine he was fuel saving earlier on in this race. Or is just trying not to get lapped by Nicholas Maynard in these closing stages. So as this 3-car train becomes a 4-car train involving Nicholas Maynard, things get a little spicier. Nicholas Maynard getting around Jesse Olsen in that braking zone. Now he's going to try to see if he can dispatch Chris Wells in all of this. Let's see here. I'm going to hop on board with, well, I won't hop on board with Nicholas Maynard, but getting through these 4 drivers as Jesse Olsen capitalizes on the gap opened by Nicholas Maynard to get around Chris Wells. Chris Wells also, I think, unfortunately having a little bit of a off there in the process, trying to avoid not hitting Nicholas Maynard. Michael Doyen also allowing him through. Andre Saba 16 seconds up the road from those group of drivers that are right there. As the battle between Tony Caicedo, Brody Wallace, as well as Malcolm Coates continues. I think we'll see this one probably go to the final lap. That's my hope there. As all 3 of those drivers get through the bus stop successfully. Brody Wallace getting a better exit out of the bus stop, but having to try to not run into the rear end of Tony Caicedo puts him 2 tenths behind Tony Caicedo. We'll see this, I think, head up pretty awesomely. If we look at onboard here. And I think Brody Wallace picking and choosing the battle he wants to face at the closing stages, getting that line set up for it. 15 minutes still on the clock as we get into the closing stages of this race. And as they come around the start-finish line once more, gap between the leaders, Nicholas Maynard up 10 seconds ahead of Dan Griffin at this point. As they get into the closing stages, Nate Sides 40 seconds behind Dan Griffin, so a pretty wide gap there between those drivers. The rest, a few seconds apart from each other, minus this battle we're looking at right now between Tony Caicedo, Brody Wallace, Malcolm Coates. Only other battle on track for position, Michael Doyen, Jesse Olsen, as they come around the start-finish line to see if they can keep their positions as they were. Michael Doyen up 4 spots from where he started, 2 spots in class and 2 more spots overall. Nick Terrell and Tony Caicedo, I think, having one of the best, biggest movers there. Sean Roberts, labeled as crashed, our one remaining GT4 driver. Unfortunately, I think slides it out, trying to keep that car going the right direction. Yeah, just gets it loose. Those curbs unsettling it, and that front end making an unfriendly, or a friendly, or one of the two. But he gets that car going back the right direction. I'm guessing we'll see him pop into pit lane here. Jesse Olsen closing on to the rear end of Michael Doyen. Long, wide angle for Michael Doyen. Jesse Olsen gonna have to figure out the way around him. Michael Doyen generously allowing Jesse Olsen by. As we have a few people driving in for the final pit stops. Adam Dahl, I believe, has come in for his. Sean Roberts, I think, has put that car in the pit lane to get a final pit stop done, as he is still laps ahead of anyone else in class. So we ride along board with, or we drive with, Brody Wallace and Malcolm Coates, both of which close the gap to Tony Caicedo. Malcolm Coates lunges up the inside for Brody Wallace, forces him wide, which is going to open up that gap and change the order of position. Tony Caicedo gets a little bit of a breather. Not much, though, as Malcolm Coates is on a hunt, trying to get back up the order here. While we've been talking about all these, Justin Hall has closed it down, or excuse me, Nick Terrell has closed it down to Justin Hall. And this battle for fourth now, I believe, is kicking off towards the end of the race. Justin Hall 3/10 ahead of Nick Terrell at the moment. Though it may change drastically here as Nick Terrell gets a fantastic exit out of the final corner. Drives it up the inside, gets that position done. We'll see if Justin has a response. Not immediately, but he is keeping that gap at 2/10. Meanwhile, Brody Wallace and Malcolm Coates getting back into it over turn number 1. And Malcolm Coates trying to get the pass done. Brody Wallace does get the pass done. Malcolm Coates trying to have the response here going into the bus stop. He's got the draft, if nothing else. Both of them have the draft behind Tony Caicedo, though. Chris Kraus is enjoying this as Malcolm Coates lunges up the inside of Brody Wallace. And Brody Wallace flashes his lights as he is a little unhappy with the driving that Malcolm Coates has employed there, as Chris Kraus also ends up in the battle for the GT4 or GT3 M leader. That race apparently is once again back on, as that fighting between all of them has caused that to do that. Fighting between all of them has caused Chris Kraus to catch up to Brody Wallace. That's what that to do that means, in case you're wondering, because I was also curious what that meant. Malcolm Coates just throwing it up the inside of Tony Caicedo. Tony Caicedo not really, I think, super appreciative of it, but waiting for the moment to get by. Malcolm Coates now finds himself at the front of this field. Brody Wallace now right behind Tony Caicedo and looking to get back past Malcolm Coates would be my guess. We'll have to see how that plays out. These four cars all together within a second. Closest battle on track at the moment as we get into the last 10 minutes of racing. Gap between the leader and P2 open to 15 seconds and 40 seconds back from Dan Griffin to Nate Sides. You can see they're on that relative timer. Brody Wallace looking for the way around Tony Caicedo going into the bus stop. And he's going to employ the tactic that Malcolm Coates employed on him. And Malcolm Coates is going to go sliding off. And he gets that car pointed back the right direction. But he gets that completed. Chris Kraus now on the hunt to get back up to Brody Wallace. Meanwhile, Nicholas Maynard resetting the fastest lap of the race. Big heartbreak there for Malcolm Coates. Let's take a quick look back at that. See if he just got loose. That's him off track again. Let's go back here. Yeah, just gets it loose, coming and bouncing over the first couple curves. Oh, hard hit into the barrier there, but keeps it out of the wall. And will get that car going back the right direction. Chris Kraus now trying to get past Tony Caicedo for that battle of GT3 AM. Justin Hall getting chased down by Patrick Cantrell as well. Chris Kraus getting around Tony Caicedo. Tony Caicedo not battling for position there. 3 seconds ahead of his next competitor in class. But the overall points do always matter. So Tony Caicedo, unfortunately, going off track. Matt Markley, getting around him as a result. A bit of a late slide there for Tony. Take a quick look back at what happened there. More specifically, just a slide. Not a bad one. Just a little brush against the tire barrier. Gets that car going back the right direction. But enough time lost there. 3 seconds causing that to happen there. Malcolm Coates labeled as crashed. Trying to figure out what happened there. Is he actually able to crash? Did he just... Yeah, he spun. Okay. Spun, keeps it out of the wall. Almost hits the flashes, the blinkers as he does so. Brody Wallace, Justin Hall diving into pit lane. I wonder if that's for incident limits. We'll find out. Justin Hall in for that splash and dash. I wonder if Brody Wallace has to do the same. But that turns the GT3 AM leadership over to Chris Kraus. Nope, he dives into his box. So that'll be for a fuel stop. A splash and dash for both of these drivers. As it comes down to the end of the race, Michael Doyen, Chris getting around Malcolm Coates as well after that spin. And he's got to come in, I'm going to guess, to service drive-through for incident limits there for Malcolm Coates. We'll check back in on that in a moment. Leader, Nicholas Maynard, currently trying to get past Brody Wallace, the driver that he was 2 spots ahead of at the start of the race. He's now almost a lap ahead of at the end of. Nope, he is into his box for either a fast repair or something. But Andre Saba getting around Malcolm Coates as well. And five minutes left on the board. Just under at this point as we come around what is going to be probably the third or second to last lap. I guess third based on where they are in the lap time and how much time is remaining on the timing tower. Oh, and Nicholas Maynard is in for his own splash and dash at the end. This might see a late race changeover for position to Dan Griffin. If he has played his cards right, which might be why he is 17 seconds behind Nicholas Maynard, excuse me. I can explain these words. We'll have to see Dan Griffin staying out so far. We'll have to see where this changes up things. Chris Wells also diving in to do his final splash and dash at the end of this race. Should make for an interesting one. Hey, a fast 5 second, just tap the fuel connector on there to get enough fuel put in for at least a lap or two. Nick Terrell and Patrick Cantrell. Oh, no. Sorry. Nick Terrell and Nate Sides coming together. Interesting. As they do so, Dan Griffin now 10 seconds ahead of Nicholas Maynard for the lead of this race. Changes hands once more. Back to our pole sitter. So we'll have to see if he's played his cards right to make this a fantastic set to make the two-stop work, which a lot of the cars did, but not everyone. Chris Kraus also diving in from his lead in GT3 AM to do his final pit stop. So I'm guessing, getting the feeling we'll probably see that change hands once more as well before the end of this race. Keeping an eye on Dan Griffin here, trying to see whether or not he has enough fuel to make it to the end. I'm also super curious about this final spot for GT3 Pro podium. Nate Sides, Nick Terrell getting into that conflict with each other. I think it's just Nick Terrell being a consistent 1:44.6 lap time versus the 1:45.83 of Nate Sides. Oh, pushing the issue around the outside. Nick Terrell looking to get this pass over and done with as fast as possible. Nate Sides at least making him work for it a little bit in the process, but he backs out to allow that to not become an incident. Dan Griffin still out and running on what I believe is going to be his second to last lap. Unless I pop over the grid screen. I don't see a white flag yet, so we'll see him work his way around Brody Wallace and Justin Hall duking it out. Justin Hall just coming out of pit lane himself. Chris Wells and Marcus Osborne. One final also battle for the bottom step of GT3M podium. As they get through the bus stop. Dan Griffin getting around Michael Doyen once more. Looking to see if we'll get a white flag this time. I don't know why we wouldn't. We have less than a minute left of this race. And I believe I didn't see one last time, so I think we'll see one this time. Let's see here. As he comes around the final corner. Jesse Olsen passing under that gantry now. A white flag in the air. Stan Griffin comes by to start the final trip around. Justin Hall and Brody Wallace duking it out for P8 overall. P9, or excuse me, P8 in class. Well, they're not in the same class. Excuse me. P8 for Justin Hall, P1 for Brody Wallace. As they get their, I believe, second to final laps done. Dan Griffin 7 seconds ahead of Nicholas Maynard. Nicholas Maynard trying to make up the 10 seconds between them. And Nate Sides diving into pit lane, doesn't have the fuel to make it to the last lap. So he's got to take a splash on the final lap, which will cause him to lose out to, I believe, both Patrick Cantrell and maybe also Matt Markley, as that time crunches between all of them. Justin Hall also getting passed by Tony Caicedo almost. As Dan Griffin gets around Jesse Olsen. Jesse Olsen now on his final lap, whether or not he wants to be. Matt Markley also diving into pit lane, so final lap for him. Dan Griffin comes home waves the checkered flag. You can see that weave there as he comes home playing that fuel game correctly. Ends up 6 seconds ahead of Nicholas Maynard for the checkered flag. Nicholas Maynard coming home P2. Nick Terrell as well in a fantastic 2-stop for Nick Terrell. He started in pit lane. We'll see him come home in P3. Patrick Cantrell, Nate Sides rounding out the top 5 of GT3 Pro. Brody Wallace taking home that GT3M victory. I'm going to say tentatively, we're still watching Nick Terrell come across the start finish line. Jesse Olsen, Michael Doing, Kelvin Collado, Andre Saba, Marcus Osborne all wrapping up their respective positions as Patrick Cantrell and Nate Sides make their way over. Sean Roberts, I've not talked about him much tonight, but our lone GT4 finisher, winner of GT4 overall as well as GT4M. We'll see him get some very good points for his championship hopes, and a consistent drive being the victor there. Nate Sides getting home in P5. Brody Wallace coming across the checkered flag as well to take home that GT3M victory. Justin Hall coming home P6. Tony Caicedo keeping ahead of Chris Kraus in the final couple corners there to take home. Oh, sorry. Tony Caicedo is being pushed by Chris Kraus to take home that position as Tony has run out of fuel. So he will end up in P9. Matt Markley and Justin Hall both getting around him at the end there to take home those positions. It'll be interesting in the league. Where could I sign up? You could sign up at this fancy, cool place. Let me put it in chat for you. It's going to be omecsimracing.com. It's going to be the easiest way to find all of the links. I probably butchered that a little bit, but OMECsimracing.com will have a link there at the top to join the Discord. If I grab that correctly, I apologize if I'm a little bit behind on that chat. Rest of the cars all swing home. We're going to take a look at our GT3 finishers for this. Dan Griffin is going to come home with that fantastic fuel race strategy to win that race, 6 seconds ahead of Nicholas Maynard in P number 2. Nick Terrell coming home P3, 45 seconds behind him. And Patrick Cantrell, Nate Sides rounding out that top 5. Justin Hall, Matt Markley, Tony Caicedo, Jesse Olsen, and Michael Doyen round out the top 10. Kelvin Collado, Andre Saba, and Malcolm Coates are the 13 drivers that will finish that race. Kevin Hayes, Kevin Medina, and William Laster are drivers that took to the start but did not take to the checkered flag. In GT3M, it's going to be Brody Wallace taking home that win. Chris Kraus late pit stops for both of them caused that to be a little bit more of a toss-up. Chris Kraus eventually ceding that position and then also pushing Tony Caicedo over the finish line. Marcus Osborne, Chris Wells, and Adam Dahl are the top 5 finishers. Charles Rotes coming home P6. Both Khalil McIntyre and Luc Plaisance are 2 cars that did not finish this race as well. GT4 Pro is going to see one driver here, Devin Adams, who did not take to the start of this race. So that is where he will be as a DNF, even though he is marked as a winner. Sean Roberts is going to be the only GT4M driver to take home a finish. Both Jaden Rissard and Kyle Orbetz Jaden Rissard started but did not finish, and then Kyle Orbetz did not start. So that is it for racing action here tonight. We're going to hop back over to this race info. Once again, OMECsimracing.com is the best place to get a part of this action if you want to join us. It is a fantastic league with great racing all across many, many skill levels, not just at one end or the other. I've been Fettuccini, your host for the evening, and next week when we come back, we'll have our final sprint race of the season, which will be at Brands Hatch and Mosport. So if that sounds up your alley, we'll see you guys in 7 days on August 19th. Same time, same channel. Thank you all very much for watching. Thanks, host. Just Discord. Fantastic. I'm thrilled to hear that I helped out there. When you join us feel free to, it'll tell you what to do here to join the registration form and the iRacing League application. Do both of those as it tells you, and then you'll be all squared away. And then when one of our guys that does the registration stuff, he will probably reach out to you as soon as he gets time. So if it doesn't happen immediately, no rush. We'll get it to you definitely before, or I will say ideally before next week and next race. But I've been Fen. Once again, thank you very much for watching. We will see you all next week at Brands Hatch and Mosport. And I'm excited for both those. I think those are two race tracks that are going to be a lot of fun in these GT3, GT4 cars. So take her easy. We'll see you then.